Highlight is a monitoring platform. You can monitor your web app, you can have session replay, they have error monitoring, so if you install their SDK, your code will be sending errors to them, which you can view. You can also view your logs, you can view your traces, and it can also be self-hosted, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like a lot of these different monitoring solutions, just all in one, which is pretty cool because it's pretty well integrated. They have couple of SDKs, but they didn't have a Rust SDK, so that was where I came in. They opened a bounty on Agora. They were missing Rust SDK support and they were looking for someone to do it. It's basically all powered by OpenTelemetry under the hood. They just wanted to have a framework Rust SDK that had just a record exception function that would just process the error that you pass it, and it would do the OpenTelemetry protocol stuff and upstream it to their servers. Instrumentation of Rust logging was also a criteria, so I ended up actually using the log facade for Rust and implementing a pass-through logger for that. So what you can do is you can have end logger, and then it is wrapped by the highlight IO logger, and then it sends the logs through that way. And yeah, HTTP request tracing, there's like too much difference between different Rust HTTP servers, so as a start I went through to implement it with Actix Web. I made a middleware that just reports Actix events as traces basically. So yeah, we ended up having a $400 bounty on this. It was raised, I think, from an initial of $250. I implemented this year. It was actually quite a big thing because I hadn't actually worked with OpenTelemetry before this. It was interesting. I also ended up running into some odd issues with the Tokyo runtime. It just took a lot of debugging to get everything to work right. So this is a huge monorepo. So we have this cargo workspace, and then here we have the basic SDK. An important thing was to work with multiple runtimes. So we have a basic sync one, we have Tokyo current thread, and async STD. That's what the OpenTelemetry stuff supported, so I just passed through those capabilities to this SDK. We needed to create these OTLP pipelines. So we have one for logging, we have one for tracing, and they're configured to send it to highlight.io. This is some just like standard config stuff. One really pesky thing was to actually shut down the logger and the tracer, so we ended up actually putting in an explicit shutdown function. We had too much trouble with like race conditions, especially when using async environments, that automatically shutting them down when the inner was dropped was basically not an option. So if you call the shutdown explicitly, this actually guarantees that everything will be sent to the server. So yeah, we have a very basic thing here. This is the bare minimum. And then we have highlight.io Actix, which is basically wrapping the same highlight.io library, but with Actix specific code. We create OTel attributes based on the HTTP request that is received. And then we create a transformer that sort of creates the middleware. This is all Actix specific stuff. We create the highlight session ID and the trace ID from the highlight request. And then here is the actual service. Here we have this builder, and this actually attaches all the attributes from the request. And then we create this new context, and we have to wrap the actual Actix service call with this context, and then we can await it and pass it on as a promise. So once the call runs, we also add the response status code, and then if it's an error, we immediately record it. So that was also a bit complicated to just get out of the way. Actix is not the most straightforward framework to work with. Oh yeah, and we also did so we have automatic publishing and building via the Catio, I don't know, this publish crates GitHub action. SDK bounties are awesome because you're essentially helping projects be able to reach more developers. So you are providing inherently more value than you would by fixing a bug or adding a new feature. This means that SDK bounties usually have higher rewards than the average bounty. These bounties are also great ways to test your ability to build structured code, because it needs to make sense for every developer who would want to use it. So if you have a passion for building great DX, or you want to just try your hand at it, I would definitely recommend going for one of these bounties. I do all my bounty work on Agora, and you can use it to find bounties too. The link is in the description below. This video was a clip from my live stream, and after this I actually went in and made more changes to the SDK, so if you're interested in that, you can watch the VOD at the link below. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.